ladies and gentlemen, everyone around and in between. This is Debate Sensei. We are doing the limited preparation, or if you want to call it the IPDA edition of Debate Sensei, where we talk about things that are relevant to competitive debates, specifically limited preparation events. We have with us from SDSU, Tim Seavey. Hey. From the world of law, Matt.
From the depths of hell.
Esquire. All right.
Crawling out.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Librarian. I need that to just stick. Like, that should be your little tag title thing.
I'll change it. I'll change that. I'll do that for you, Tim.
An attack librarian.
Yep.
All right. So
done. Consider it done.
What we're doing is a type of show that we do a lot. You could look it through our history and see it, is where we take actual topics from a debate tournament, an IPDA tournament. And this is one from a tournament that's coming up, but we take last year's topic. This is from the Reno tournament from last year. First round. Yeah, first round. And Tim Seavey's hometown. All right. So.
And the city I build a freeway to in plan more than anywhere else in the whole world. If we're building a freeway to Reno.
I don't know why that's your example, but yeah,
it's such a good example.
Cool, bad idea.
I don't know why it's so obscure.
So
have you been to the biggest little town in the world?
First round topic from the 2022 tournament, and these are around like civil rights reforms or civil procedure reforms, justice, and I don't know. Overall, Tim, I was talking with you. This seems pretty heavily weighted to the affirmative side, don't you think?
I do not want to be on the negative side of this. There's like one topic that I would be down to defend. Like otherwise, you just happen to get crafty and like do more or pick out of that or like extreme. Like I feel like you just got to get procedural to win some of these. So we'll see where these go. So all right, coin toss first to decide who's on the losing side.
Yes, basically. So here we go. Now we're just going to do this nice and fair. So if it comes up heads, your aff. If it comes up tails, your neck. So this is one of those ones where like the coin flip might determine the winner.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Heads your aff, tails your neck. Boom. Oh.
Yes.
Oh man.
All right. So
next strikes first.
Yep.
Next strikes first. Let's see here. God, I have so many choices.
Yeah, you have lots of topics you definitely don't want to be on the wrong side of.
Okay, so
show everybody.
This is my first one. It's the first strike right there.
The United States should take significant action to reduce racial bias in policing. Period.
Like on the neg, what am I going to say? I'm like, no, we should take a small steps, minor repairs.
Neg, I would say like masking. Like there are so many racial bias programs, and nothing's happening. It's just a word people say to send people to a 2-hour class that doesn't actually do anything. Now they just know they're racially profiling, but they still do it. Doesn't mean it's like no racial or the application of racial bias is bad class. It doesn't say that. It just says. This is how you identify your racial bias. But
I think I'd phrase that as just a big old solvency takeout, maybe getting into some critical level impacts. But I think I would definitely go really, really.
Not to say that they're bad. There's a lot of AF. It's AF strong. I understand why you're saying that. But I think
that would be like the one strategy that I have coming into the round with, and then you have to base it off of. All right, let's see what their proposal is. And it's really about whether or not the AF chose the easiest thing to defend on.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of offense on this. Besides, I think there is plenty of fertile critical ground on saying that like the United States being the actor to solve racial bias is like very much wrong. You could also probably say the majority of race-based. So this is my likely neg strategy is the vast majority of like racial policing comes at the state and county levels and city levels. So like your state troopers, your sheriffs, your city police officers are the ones that are perpetrating the majority, like the FBI.
The president.
In many cases. I'm sure they're also awful, but you don't see as much just because there is probably less like in total volume. And so the federal government trying to make some change, like they don't have as much impact over state, city, and local municipal law enforcement. So therefore, they're not going to have as much sway over this. And so I would just be, counterplan local. Here's why they're competitive. That would be my only option.
But you could just, I don't know, you could on the AF, you could take it where it's the United States. It's like, yeah, all of the states should do this.
Yeah,
No, you can't do that. That's actually against the rules, kind of. There's
What?
an interesting there's a legal thing here. Yeah, so the United States cannot pass a law that makes states pass laws. That's called commandeering. You can't do that. But the best example I can give is like the United States wanted all the states to make a drinking age of 21. Nancy Reagan. No one knows who that is at this point, but some people know.
Not Nancy Reagan, Elizabeth Dole.
All right.
Yeah.
So what they can do is withhold funding if states are to you can pass a law that says every state who makes a drinking age of 21 can get $500 million of federal highway funding. So now they just kind of reverse got you by the balls and go, all right, they can't tell you what to do, but they can make it so incentivized to do what they want you to do that it's almost insane not to do it. And anyone to not do it is just, So that's a thing. Commandeering versus spending clause. Two different federal things federal people can do.
And that is still technically effects topical, right? So like the plan in a vacuum, if the federal government can only say we will withhold funding for anyone who doesn't do this thing, does not guarantee the outcome. So you're not getting to solvency. You have to assume solvency. You have to assume other additional things happen in order for the plan to actually solve any harms.
To get all the way back to racial bias policing. Yeah.
What's that? Like why you can't pass a plan that just says the federal government forces states. But it's a good point, Tim.
I want to caution people not to let theory overlook like the topic though, because the topic is kind of worded where you have to be effects topical. You need to take significant action in order to do racial profiling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or racial bias in policing, I should say. So you like there are some unique responses that you have on the.
I would argue, Tim, if your plan was the United States should provide $500 million to any state who mandates racial bias training, that I don't think would be effects topical. I mean, because that's pretty much the only action they could take to make a state affect. And you're right. I do like what you said at the beginning. Like for the vast majority of in reality, the federal government can't really mess with the county or state policemen who are at your door. I mean, they can obviously affect it, but the people who change the rules would be local, state, or county level.
Well, the interesting thing about the effects topicality thing on a topic like this is that you could actually say that the effects topicality means that my solvency arguments are round winners, right? Whereas before you go on a net benefits paradigm, it's kind of like, okay, I don't solve for everything, but then, I still have advantages. And this one, if you're like, well, no, you don't really reduce racial bias amongst policing. So it doesn't matter if you have any other advantages, or even if I don't have disadvantages, proving that you don't solve simultaneously proves that you aren't topical.
I don't think you can spell simultaneously.
And so it gets into a really interesting, well, not necessarily interesting, but sort of a technical level of like interpretation at that point.
This is a good one. I like this one, even though you guys struck it first.
We still do have 4 other topics to get through.
And
we talk about one side of this one topic. These are all like good topics. They're in-depth topics, but they.
The AF is you can find some evidence that says that stuff helps prevent racism, and then it's good.
You need to throw out a bunch of policies though, which like it's probably behooves us to still throw out a few in there. Like you can talk about like how body cams have had some impact in some states at this point in time, like racial sensitivity training, hiring incentives for like a diverse hiring pool. DEI committees within police departments are also like good steps that can be taken. Also like prison reform. So this is definitely like an effects topical thing, but you can say if we change the punishment for various crimes, like that also ends up impacting policing. Because,
stigma, changing the stigma.
Yeah. Like the funding for police departments and things like coming out of state funds that comes from prison. Like, so there are ways that can be done, or like changing finding, whatever. You can also like punish certain things of like all right, if we're going to document every stop and frisk, for example, and then like police officers with like too big of a swing one side or another, like there can be like, I think that kind of punitive is also mushy in its topical potential, but like you should definitely do some research into steps that some states are taking, because some states are doing better than others. So implement those plans.
Okay.
All right, my turn. I strike retributive justice. So protection of the public necessitates a retributive form of justice. Matt, what does retributive mean?
I'm gonna use the internet for that one, buds.
Retribution, right? So like we gotta exact harm on someone for harming the populace. Like a quid pro quo, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of deal, right? So in order to protect the public, we have to have some form of like retribution justice. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, but it is not one that I want to be on the pro side, like trying to say like, yeah, we need retributive justice. So you could argue that our current model is pretty much retributive. Like your only two penalties for the most part for doing a crime are like fines or jail time. I suppose you've also got like community service maybe in there.
Death.
Sure. All right. Sure.
Don't forget that little ditty. Other than that one.
You got a smattering of things that are pretty much to penalize the individual. I suppose like best case scenario, you could say like community service is meant to be like some kind of like betterment and improvement of community. But when you've got fines and you've got jail being far and away like the two most frequently used tools.
Probation.
Sure, but it's still like limit their freedom, limit their resources, right? So like take someone's freedom, take someone's resources. As things that doesn't do crap to stop them from doing crimes again. So like the recidivism rate, maybe not because of those, but given the outcomes of those activities is enormous. So like, oh, we have a fine for, insider trading or like, various, which we'll get to in a moment when we talk about white collar crimes, where like when there are just fines for like rich people crimes, it just becomes a cost, right? Like, oh yeah, of course. Like, yeah, you just pay the crime. So not a deterrent. But then when it is a fine for something that is like in a, say they're fines for like methamphetamine use or something that tends to be associated with a much lower socioeconomic thing, like that only makes any like economic disparity exacerbated. So like fines are really, really terrible form of justice. But then like restriction of freedom gets really bad too. There's a million reasons why I don't want to be on the pro side of this. Best case, I think you just paint a really like pathos heavy picture of like, here's this really awful thing that this criminal did. That person deserves to have some kind of merit, like the physical guttural feeling of like wanting to exact justice upon someone. I feel like is maybe stupid, but it's the best idea that I've got on the affirmative for like how to try and actually sway a judge on that. I don't think I've got like good data and evidence to support that like, that's an effective form of justice.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one topic that I'd cross my fingers and hope on the neg I can get.
That was number one on my neg list.
Yeah, so necessitates a retributive form of justice. Yeah, protection of the public necessitates. Well, I mean, I guess if I was on the AF, I might be saying things like, well, you got to remove physical threats. So like maybe we do over police and we do over jail, but that doesn't mean that. So I would have to argue that there are some crimes where, retribution is necessary, all right, for the protection of the public. And so I would just try to push that burden a little lower. If I was on the affirmative, would be probably the only trick I got.
It reminds me of like, you ever heard that thing that says, the rules are written in a way to protect one innocent life from being screwed over than a guilty life. Mm-hmm. Some I don't know the exact quote, and I'm sorry, but there's some, moniker. Is that a thing? Is that a word? There's some
Washington
phrase that says it says, the system is more built to protect one innocent life than convict the guilty, basically. Mm-hmm. And in a weird way, I kind of see a way to say, like, when we say protection of the public, when we really, in a vacuum, assuming we really do have a person who is a, threat to society and is just going to kill and pillage and ravage if you let this person go, then in that situation, it's good to have like extreme punishment to like prevent that from happening again. And I mean that you know, that tendency for a person like that to do those things, whether you let them go in 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, or 20 years, they're going to do that again. Like, that concept is so strong that I think it justifies, when I say it justifies, societally, it seems to justify that protection of one innocent person being killed once you have a person like that incarcerated or in a cage, you know, like, they'd rather paint everyone to be a person like that to kind of, just, you should worry about this person. And like, I think the system's built that way. And I think it's kind of a challenge on the concept of we can't deny, okay, I'm going to say this at least. I've seen too many Netflix and too much Forensic Files to tell you. There's probably people out there who like you need to worry about and should be locked up like hardcore, like, yeah, like death penalty, maybe. I don't know, whatever. But, the second you start getting into the weeds of like a level of a crime and what that damage, what that injury is to a society, selling weed on the street versus a serial rapist, murderist, you know, that those are just such different protections. So I guess you can kind of, you know, play on either side, af or neg, on kind of that model of just. Yeah, what are we talking about here? Yeah, because it's so vague.
You can come up with a bunch of examples that aren't necessary, but as long as you come up with any example that is necessary, like, so you can switch the burdens on the affirmative. But again, or on
the negative,
where like you've got to argue theoretically there are some examples, but like as soon as you start into any like
not even theoretically, in reality, there are some of these people, but in reality, a lot of people aren't that. So okay, right. yeah. Go ahead.
All right, next one. So this is my strike. Yeah, this one's got to go.
You're neg, right? Jed, you're neg.
Yeah, like because it's not even private prisons; it's for-profit prisons. Like you know, because there could be some non-profit private prisons. I'm curious, like what the percentage is, but like the for-profit is just even more on another level.
I think this. I don't know this, and I haven't looked this up, and I'm sorry, but you know, this is like, is the prison owned by the government or is it owned by Prison Incorporated X? You know.
Correct.
Seavey Prisons Incorporated.
That's who owns the prison.
You see Tim? You see this face in the middle of the screen? This guy owns 6 private prisons. I'm telling you that right now. Just know that.
You walk into Costco, and like they have air conditioning, hang your door, private prison.
T-shirts, white pants, white T-shirt, numbers that you can stick on.
It's a starter kit, and it's
they sell bars. They sell bars at Costco now. So $2,000 bars at Costco.
Right around the belt in DC, like, is where they sell the best. So arguably probably about the most evil thing that happens legally in the country right now. I think I could plant my flag in that and say like the for-profit prisons are about the worst thing that the government stamps as acceptable, and corporations are like, yep, let's do that. So
it's scary as a corporation who gets money.
I think I've got 1,010,000 arguments on the affirmative side for like why this is just a tee off easy answer.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm on my heels the whole time. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to find the best for-profit prison that exists and use it as the example. Maybe like.
I think you can take like Club Med, like the place where Rupert Murdoch went, that has like the golf program and like equestrian team and shit like that. So you can be like, there exist these programs that really produce better citizens. Like you come out of this with an MBA, you have yourself like you are extremely flexible from the yoga program. You have better healthcare than you ever like, and this is why we should keep private prisons. Like, so yes, there exist prisons that I'm sure the inmates come out like completely new, better people. In a wonderful, magical world, that would be great, right? Like if it were, that is.
If every prison was like that, yeah.
If there existed a prison in Norway or something, like a rehabilitative prison program that any
meadow in Norway where prisoners camp
into this program and came out a better human being than when they were in before, and like went out of their way to stop the crime that they were previously committed. Like that is wonderful. That is not how they actually function. So again, I think a lot of this, like on the negative side, or similar to the previous one, you just have to be like, well, theoretically, like,
Yeah.
hear me out. It's a great idea. And then you realize like, oh, okay, cool. So Prison Inc. actually is, killing
Tim Seavey, Prisons Incorporated.
Yeah, like they're receiving or paying kickbacks to police departments to over police the hell out of certain areas and set.
No, there's a judge. A judge got caught like getting money from private prisons for over. It's not so much. It's conviction and sentence. Yeah.
Yes,
I think for-profit prisons
phenomenally corrupt.
I think they are just theoretically a bad idea. Like they're not even theoretically a good idea. That's how I will put it. You know what I mean? It's like,
I think it's the idea. You can say like they came out of the idea though that states don't have enough funding, and so like jails become bad. So you can say like the Gulag, right? Like Russian prisons are bad because Russia doesn't put money into their prisons. In state prisons are things because like if ever given an opportunity to cut funding for something, taxpayers are going to cut funding for prisons because like why should prisoners get no more dollars? So that's the argument I think that's put forth is that like publicly funded prisons are always going to be cut more and receive the least, and so therefore the inmates receive the least care. So you can paint the picture of like a publicly run prison giving the least quality or like the worst possible experience, and therefore there could be this like magic solution that the free market solves. But then as soon as that happens, like the bloody gaping maw of capitalism absolutely
gaping holes.
Right there, Tim, just going to stop you right there. You heard it here, everybody. Tim is in favor of for-profit.
Gaping.
No, that's we're fixing that record right away. No,
he owns the prison. Tim owns 6 private prisons. You guys, look. The question is,
we should move past this quickly.
No, I want to say my 2 cents. I have a nickel. I have a penny's worth of things to say. Okay, look. Does the government, should certain tasks be assigned to the government to pay for? And is holding its public citizens, in a cage, one of those things? The problem, if you let a corporation do it, is a corporation who's going to get money for being in existence want prisoners in its thing? Yeah, kind of does. So that's why it's bad. It's for profit. I think you just on the app you're like the government should run this and they should treat everyone right, but they should pay. And if no one's in there, then the taxpayers pay for an empty prison. But hey,
all right, we got one more strike and then we got the leftover. What do you got, Tim?
I'm going to take out. Man, we end up with the most boring topic. So based on my strike, we get to the final thing. I'm picking the boring topic as our actual round. So that means I'm going to strike the individual rights versus collective good.
Okay.
This is an interesting debate.
The criminal justice system should prioritize individual rights over community good, period.
Yeah, so I don't want to be on the affirmative of this one because I think that it just becomes a little bit of an example war. And it's still a worthwhile, fun debate to have. It's not a fun debate to be judged on and like to be naming a winner and a loser. I think it's like an interesting.
What the hell is community good?
So community, like what you were just talking about previously, where you were saying like having a system that is really good at ensuring that we do not convict innocent civilians, like an innocent person, and at the expense of potentially letting some guilty people off. Like it is worth letting some guilty people off.
That is a good example.
You don't convict. That's an example of a community good. So like in theory, I suppose that's a good thing because it would be really bad to like punish an innocent person. But like at the expense of
basically, Tim, what you just said is if your individual rights in this circumstance, then you're pro mandatory minimums. You're pro 3 strikes.
So this is why I said it's going to be a stupid debate because you get people like Matt in here that just like start throwing like, well, what about this example? Well, what about this?
No,
example?
you brought it up.
It's no longer like an interesting debate. It's just like this vomit of clashing examples.
Yeah. So and the individual rights over community good. So I'd be the community good on the neg,
or equal to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be. I mean, I'd be painting that as like gun rights would be and so would be probably my biggest one. I'm saying it's like, listen, too many people are dying, and we're not. I don't know how many tyrants our guns have prevented from rising to the top. It just doesn't seem like that many. You know what
Not
I mean?
enough,
It's
at
like-
least.
What if? Okay, what if like a kid that got murdered in a school was going to be Hitler? Then nothing. That's the
Nope.
That's the
Yeah,
worst thing ever
that's
said
Yeah,
on
it's
the.
the worst. So, like I said,
please,
it becomes
please,
a
Matt,
terrible.
That's the worst thing ever said on the internet. We did it here. We did it. But hey, that is a crazy concept.
So-
What if?
I think so. I would probably, if I were on the affirmative, I'd have to try and make the argument that like individual rights, if we protect every individual's rights, that is how you go about protecting the community good. So the community good is the sum total of everyone's individual rights being protected. So I'd go for like a Rawls theory of like if you were to imagine yourself in the position of like the least advantaged person in a society, protect that individual person, and that's how like your best justice comes about. That idea, I think, supports individual rights rather than focusing on the community good. I think because you end up with rounding errors and like examples of like, well, that's just a fringe case, or we can't fix everything, or we can't help everyone. That kind of logic, I think, is what ends up producing kind of bad individual rights or policies that are more harmful to individual liberties, because the idea is like, well, the public good should be prioritized. So that's the best where I've got. Again, it's like you have to take it theoretical. I think the part of the reason why these topics were so rough is it's like one side gets to defend the theory and then the other side gets reality the entire time. And that is a hard debate to win.
All right, let's. We got 3 minutes. Let's take a look at our topic right here. Boom.
The boring one.
Yeah. Too
But
soft.
like, how much fun to be on the affirmative for this one, right?
Jared, how could you, you're the neg, you would want this one? How did you not strike this one first?
Let's review
over here.
Let's review the other two that I struck. Okay, here we go.
You stroke a lot, so you know.
And so I struck that one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I struck
United States should.
that one.
Okay.
Like so, those are the other two that I struck.
So
I
this
only had
means
2 strikes.
that when he gets to go back to his very
I would have let the last one go. dude.
Everyone's best friends. He's still got his woke agenda, but he makes sure his portfolio is taken care of.
Yeah, what's your argument? What's the neg argument
of our leader here? So, yeah, I don't have a lot that I could say on the negative side of this, but like the affirmative, I think it is.
You don't F. You're F.
I know. So I'm saying it'd be really easy. I find it easy to win rounds when no one has any sympathy for the villain.
Right.
There are no villains that people like. There are no like billionaires that people are like, oh, but their life.
They are all villains. We don't
Like,
care. Like, they
main
should be
waste.
fucked harder. Sorry.
So like that is a fun debate to have, because I feel like it is a very easy villain to be like, yeah, billionaires, their life is worse. Boo-hoo. Every single
All
time.
villains
Like,
are
any
billionaires, if you think about
crime
it.
is like there are real people that are harmed in corporate crime situations. It is not a victimless crime. It ends up like really,
No,
genuine.
$1 billion gets stolen.
Yeah. Right.
So-
It's the worst crime. It's like the most expensive crime is the one that they're like, you know what? Go to your yacht and you can stay on there for a month and wear this little bracelet and you'll be all right. See you later. And pay $10 million.
And meanwhile,
Some
like,
stupid number.
Schools are getting, cut, and social health care thing. Like this, all of the things that the government actually needs money for, whether it's defrauding the government or not. But yeah.
These are my
Yeah.
personal beliefs. Maybe they are.
The debate focuses on what it means to be too soft. Okay, and so
Jared knows a lot about this. Tell us about it,
you
Jared.
need to define. I'm going to be forcing you into defining what that means, and I'm going to be saying it's kind of like, okay, so I need you to
A flaccid approach,
explain to
basically.
me- I need you to explain to me what would be effective corporate punishments.
Hard corporate punishment.
So
I would say
The opposite of soft.
decreasing the burden of proof to determine a corporate crime would be like one avenue. Increasing the number of arrests, so like whether or not an actual police action is taken, so like the number of times that the investigation is made versus an arrest is made, so like decreasing the burden of proof, increasing the number of arrests, extending or increasing by a large margin the judgments that are made on it. So
Dude, and
and
this is
also
crazy.
probably even the type. So like anything that is a financial crime that has a financial cost as its punishment, change that. Nope, you don't get out of this. It's kind of like the trial by combat, where it's like, oh well, I'll choose my champion, as they talk about in Game of Thrones. We're like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. You can't just happen to use the thing you've already got an overwhelming power. As a financial institution, you can't just pay your way out of a problem. No, someone's going to jail. There is now hard time being done for this particular crime. Sorry, you've defrauded the your populace, or all of your shareholders, or whatever. You've screwed over your employees. You are going to prison, and not fancy prison, You get to go to a bad prison.
Not federal pound me in the ass prison.
So,
Watch Office Space, everybody. That's a great movie.
Right. So I guess we'd also have to clarify corporate crime, right? These would be crimes that are levied against a corporation. It's not that
the people running a corporation, the people people, board members and officers.
Yeah. So things that like frequently like bankruptcy or like restructuring can get you out of. I think that would be another avenue. Would be like corporations can no longer declare bankruptcy or something like that. Now, granted, that's maybe too extreme because then you're like, okay, now no one ever creates no small business ever is started or whatever. But I think you can start taking those examples where like people that use tax entities, including like nonprofits, as their buffer between anything that the company does versus something that they do, because like, oh, well, now there's only potential harm done to this technically, inanimate figure that is just like a bank account and a name, but like you can't put a company in prison. That kind of shielding, trying to eliminate that. So like thinning the corporate veil or something. It would be my
and so
corporate veil. Nice, Tim.
Yeah,
just for you.
Yeah, you just have to. I have to push more and more on making sure that we're talking about the same thing. Because earlier you're talking about sending people to jail, and people go to jail for financial crimes, and people go to jail for fraud. But corporate crime would be committed by corporations. By definition, you can't send a corporation to jail.
That's the thing, though, is it's like that language is that like, oh, but it was committed by the corporation. I don't buy that. Corporations are human beings making decisions. So maybe you send every board member to jail.
That's what I'm saying is that now you're not talking about corporate crime anymore.
But Jared, a person can be a person can be an individual person who at certain times or at all times, maybe in certain instances, are acting as a corporation. Like if I am doing something in my official capacity as the CEO or as a board member of a corporation, even though you're Jared Miller, you also are, Acme Corporation at that moment. You are acting on behalf. Once someone signs a contract, once someone is working and doing something on behalf of any like I understand what you're saying. A corporation is a name and an address filed with a state somewhere. That's true. But like, but the way a corporation interacts with people. And of anybody, whoever that is, the United States, by the way, included, who is also just a bunch of words on paper until people start knocking on your door. I mean, that's a good example. The U.S., the United States, as an entity, is not a person, but so the United States could send someone to your door and find all the drugs in your house.
My whole argument is then you don't really have a problem with corporate crime. You have a problem that individuals aren't held accountable for their actions.
Hey, I want to say something that's completely separate of all your stuff.
Like if you were going to say that if we increase the punishment on corporations, that would be a way to be topical. But if you want to increase the punishments on individuals, your problem isn't with corporate crime. Your problem is with individuals getting off for financial crimes.
No, so you still like Enron people still went to, or theoretically, Enron executives still went to prison. They did not personally commit those crimes. They were committing the crimes as the corporation. So corporate crimes, like officers of companies, can still be held criminally liable for the actions of their company. So I'm saying I would increase those. So like, Exxon decides they're going to dump more in the ocean. That's the company decided more. And I'm saying that that's BS that we allow it, that it is the company's decision. It was a board full of human beings, living, breathing beings that voted to make that decision. All of them now, their individual liberties and whatever should be held accountable rather than the corporate veil where it's like, no, the company did this. So therefore only the company can be punished, which only has so many punishments available, like financial. No. So to limit that corporate veil and to say that individuals acting on behalf of the country or of a company can be held and should be held accountable for the actions of that company.
There's actually also a legal thing that allows the government, like a court, if a corporation does something really bad, a court can put a company in something called a receivership. It's almost like a conservatorship, but for a company, and they could put someone in charge of it. The court puts someone in charge, and they can either, slowly take the thing down or find alternative ways to run it with different people. But the different people, like as you're talking about, So there are ways that maybe the entire company could change through a court, through all this justice stuff that we're talking about. I want to say really quick one thing: the corporations own the press. So one thing is the exposure. The United States is soft on letting the corporations being the only ones who are distributing this information. Like one reason why corporate crime goes so regulated or whatever is because we don't hear about it. We don't know about it because the people who are doing those things are probably the ones that are, in bed or in charge of the news outlets being basically monopolized in a lot of ways. So I just wanted to go there for a second.
Yeah. So my only argument is that this resolution is basically saying that if you want to, if you want to hold corporations more accountable, you have to increase the punishments on corporations. Yeah. I'm trying to distinguish that where
you're kind of forcing me.
I'm not done. If you want to increase, what Tim is saying is if you want to increase accountability of corporations, punish individuals more. That's not the same thing.
I'm saying this isn't a policy round, and I'm just saying the United States isn't the U.S. federal government. The United States is people who don't even care about corporate crime because we don't hear about it, because we don't know about it, because so anyways.
Yeah. We're running over though. Anyways.
36 minutes. Thank you, everybody.
Good topics. Those were all good topics that just get into really dense waters.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Hey, it is Jared, Tim, and Matt. We will see you again in the future. Woo! I almost knocked that over. Adios, everybody.